Welcome back to the Girl Out of Order podcast. We are in our 2 months of the topic of worthiness, and today we are talking about a topic that I actually didn't know was near and dear to my heart until I started researching it. And then I just kept researching and researching and researching. And I thought, oh my goodness, I think there's a lot here that I need to uncover. So we're diving in to the topic of people pleasing. I'm calling this episode People Pleasing Rehab: When to Say Yes and When to Say No. And I have a really, really strong suspicion, call it a hallucination, call it an intuition, that this topic is going to land with so many of you. And if for some reason you've evolved and people pleasing isn't really a big deal for you, take a moment, take a breath, and look around, because I'm sure there are people in your life that you love that struggle with people pleasing, and it affects everything they do. So I'm really excited to dive into this topic because we at Girl Out of Order are all about designing compelling, extraordinary lives. And to do that, we have to stop with the people pleasing. So before we dive in, though, we need your help here at Girl Out of Order. We are growing and we need your help to grow even more. Please do me a favor. I know that reviews and surveys kind of can be a little bit annoying sometimes, but I need to let you know how critically important these are to grow the Girl Out of Order podcast. Please go on whatever platform you listen to this podcast and leave us a written review. I promise you it will take you 5 or 10 minutes, and it would mean the world to me and our community. And if you're watching this on YouTube, amazing. Subscribe to our channel. Our subscribers are growing every day, and we want you on that channel. The more you subscribe, the more you leave reviews on YouTube, the more we can raise our platform. And we want to create a tribe of Girls Out of Order and get our message out into that universe so we can make a difference. But we need your help to do that. Reviews are everything to podcasts. So please help us out in that way. And if you haven't already, please join our Girl Out of Order Facebook community. That community is also growing and it's so exciting. And I am beside myself with excitement because we have, for the first time ever, scheduled a live Zoom community call. That's right. We are going to actually get together as a community on Zoom, where you all can meet each other, get to know each other, share our wins. We're going to have discussions on the topic of worthiness. I'm going to take questions, and we're going to get to know each other as a community. I am so excited. I've done a lot of this within the Unleash Her Power Within community, and these gatherings on Zoom are such a point of connection, and they're also fuel for your transformation, because when we belong to a community, we are that much more likely to implement what we are learning and what we feel convicted about. So please, please, please join us on April 22nd at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. The Zoom link is in the Facebook community, so if you haven't joined it, hop on in there. We really want you to be a part of this first ever live Zoom call. We're going to have so much community connection. And at the end of the big gathering, we're going to go into breakout rooms where you all can get to know each other on a more intimate level. Do not let that freak you out. Remember, we're all about cultivating bravery, right? And inspiring boldness at Girl Out of Order. And so boldly come into this meeting. Join us for this amazing night. I am so excited to get to know you and to watch all of you get to know each other. So before, again, we dive into the meat of this podcast, I want to share some empowereds for the week. And they are from the Queen, Oprah Winfrey. And I love this quote. It is so succinct. It is so to the point, and it sets the tone for this podcast. She says, "I was a people pleaser, but the only person I didn't please was me." Ooh, isn't that incredible? Think about that. People pleasing is so epidemic in humanity for sure, but in particular with female human beings. And you have the queen, Oprah Winfrey, saying, I was a people pleaser, but the only person that was left not being pleased was me. That is a perfect segue into this incredibly important topic. We are in a 2-month long journey through the topic of worthiness. And so why are we dealing with people pleasing? Well, if it isn't self-evident, let me really hit it home here. People pleasing is quite possibly one of the most debilitating habits to your journey towards true self-worth. Because when you are always looking to please other at the expense of yourself, how can you have high self-worth? You can't. You literally can't do both simultaneously. So let's talk about what is people pleasing. First and foremost, over 50% of women, surveys say, I don't know who the surveys are, but we're going to go with it because it seems really relatable. Over 50% of women self-identify as a people pleaser. And so women are like, yep, that's me. I'm a people pleaser. And sometimes women are like, yep, people pleaser. And they're bold about it and they're confident about it. And they feel good about it. And that's, in my opinion, a bit of a problem, because when we really pull back the curtain on what people pleasing is, you realize the negative effects that it has on living a beautiful, fulfilling life. You limit your potential when you're a people pleaser. So let me ask you a question. Do you want to be loved and or accepted more than you want to be fully you? Do you? So many women, if they're really honest, would say, actually, yeah, I think I do. Do you want approval and or acceptance from others more than you want to live consistent with your truest values? Now, this question might give you a little bit more pause, because your instinct might say, of course not. Of course not. Of course I want to live consistent with my values more than I want to be loved and accepted. But when it really comes down to it, do you? Do you really? At Girl Out of Order, we are honest with ourselves, because that's how we find our way back, or maybe for the first time ever, find our way to our truest identity. It's by being radically honest with ourselves. So let me ask you this question. Do you sacrifice essential parts of yourself, your desires, your dreams, to win the approval of others or avoid conflict? Ooh, that one hits home, because conflict avoidance is a big deal in people pleasing. So one more question for you. Then this one's huge too. This one's actually probably the hugest, because it really sort of is the umbrella over these other questions. Do you say yes when your inside is screaming no? Or do you say no to something you want when your inside is screaming yes? I want that so badly, but I'm going to say no. I'm going to demur. I'm going to take a pass because you want to please somebody else. Do you dim your light, sister, so others can shine? So many of us do. You see, people pleasing is this relentless striving to gain the approval of others at the expense of your own needs, wants, and desires. Can manifest in so many ways in a woman's life. And oftentimes those ways are subtle, and they're like woven into the way we live our lives. You see, female human beings have been conditioned by society to be more nurturing, which is beautiful, and sacrificial. Again, a beautiful trait. But what happens is it gets warped And the way that it plays itself out in our lives, if we're not congruent with our values, if we're not locked in to our identity, is that we are chameleons. We flex and we contort ourselves to fit molds. We were never designed to fit. And we say yes to things that we have no desire to do. And we say no to things we passionately want because we're so desperate to make other people happy, to make sure everybody else is okay. And people pleasing is destructive and it's exhausting and it's heartbreaking. And you lose years of impact and passion and adventure in your own life. You see, women are taught from a very young age that to be self-focused is to be selfish. To prioritize your desires and needs makes you prideful and self-centered. And we have to unwind those lies. For years, I was part of a very conservative church. I know I've spoken about this before. And there's so much beauty in that church. And it was a lot of, self-sacrifice, and you're a stay-at-home mom and you give yourself to your children and your husband and your home, and it's beautiful. And yet it so easily tilts to the point where sacrifice is elevated over self-love. And it's crushing to the soul. And if you step outside the lines of what your community expects of you, you're unsubmissive, you're ungodly, you don't fit the mold. Oh, I'll pray for you. And I don't mean to be mocking, but it's powerful and how it influences us. And it doesn't have to be a church. It can be the PTA. It can be the soccer moms. It can be, your work environment. It doesn't matter what it is. When we have expectations placed upon us, and oftentimes it's because we allow it, let's be honest, and we don't fit that mold, we can be ostracized. And so that painful fear of being ostracized, of not being accepted, of not being loved, maybe being abandoned, we're willing to abandon ourselves in the service of others. And that is people pleasing. So let's play this out. Let's talk about, what does people pleasing look like in the life of a woman? Like, the number one sign that you are a people pleaser. And I didn't think about this when I was doing the research. I was like, oh, this makes so much sense to me. Over apologizing. Yep, it's called the sorry syndrome. And if you go back to episode 7, I can't believe it was that long ago. Episode 7 in the Girl Out of Order podcast was called Not Freaking Sorry. And then after that, I did my first ever interview with my daughter, Chloe. So I think that was episode 8. And she talked about how I raised my daughters not to apologize for things they don't need to be sorry for. And Chloe's a very confident young woman. And she really does a great job of not saying I'm sorry unless she needs to apologize for something. I see this habit, this pattern, it's rampant in women. I see it a lot in the women that I help that are going through a divorce. They're beaten down. They're emotionally I wouldn't bankrupt. That's not the right word. They're emotionally traumatized. For so many years, they've emptied themselves out for a marriage that has come to an end, and they just apologize for everything. I see it in teenagers that come to my house because my daughters, they don't do a lot of this over apologizing. In fact, they probably could apologize a little bit more if I'm being honest. But their friends, oh my goodness. Oh, sorry. Think about this. If you're out in the grocery store and you are going down the grocery aisle and there's somebody whose cart is, maybe a hair into your way. Oh, sorry. No, you're not sorry. You say, excuse me. You replace the phrase I'm sorry with excuse me. See the difference? I'm sorry brings you down a level. It lowers you below the person that you're saying you're sorry to. And if you start to pay attention to this, and I would really invite you to do this, because people pleasing, the way we're going to bust through people pleasing is to get aware of how we do it, or the people that we love, how they do it, so we can help shepherd them, pull them out of this terrible habit. Over apologizing, man, I'm telling you, it is one of the biggest signs of people pleasing. So pay attention to it. I bet you'll catch yourself saying, I'm sorry, when you simply should say, excuse me, or oops, or something that doesn't bring you down below the other person. Okay? What's another way? Oh boy, constantly saying yes, especially without thinking. Over committing is a huge sign of people pleasing. Have you ever met that mom, or we're just going to go with the mom example. Have you ever met that mom who literally does everything? She's at every party in elementary school, and she's the mystery reader, and she's bringing treats to the soccer team, and you feel like, my God, woman, do you sleep? Now, maybe she's one of those super women, and they are out there, although I think they are rare, because the majority of the women that are doing all the freaking things, I don't care, it could be the person at work who literally says yes to every additional project or overtime request or travel schedule that she really doesn't have time for. Overcommitting, saying yes without thinking. Oh my gosh, has this been a problem in my life? I remember when I was a stay-at-home mom for almost a decade with my daughters, and it was a beautiful time, and it was a dizzying time because people would plan things, and I'd be like, yes, 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 let's do this. I didn't want to be left out. I didn't want to be left behind. Ooh. I was afraid if I said no, they wouldn't ask me next time. Have you ever felt like that? Oof. It's painful for me to even remember that. And you say, when we started our church out here, I said, yes, we volunteered and helped start the high school ministry. And I taught Sunday school. I was nursing a new baby while the kids were down in the gym. Then I would teach, and then we would help clean up after church. And then, holy crap. I mean, there's only so much you can handle. Years ago, when I went back to work, I went and told my friend Cindy. We helped raise our children together. She lived up the road from me. And I think I've talked about Cindy on my podcast before. And Cindy's a dear, dear friend of mine. And she was a dear friend for years. And I came to her house and I told her I had accepted this job. And we had this unbelievable fight. It was like a colossal fight. It was actually it came out of nowhere, in my opinion. And it took us years to recover, to be honest. It took a really long time for our friendship to recover, but thankfully we both grew up and we outgrew the weirdness, and we have a beautiful friendship today. But when we were working through this, she had done a lot of work on herself, and she said what led to a lot of that was the fact that she had been saying yes to me to help me out for years when she knew she should have been saying no, and she was just empty. And I didn't even know, because we exchanged kids all the time, and I would ask for help, and she was so much more organized and meticulous, and just, I admired her so much. But yeah, I leaned on my friend because I needed her, right? But I had no idea she was emptying herself out for me. I had no clue she was burning herself out for me. And it ended up destroying our friendship for many, many years. So overcommitting. What about overdoing helpfulness? Have you ever met that person who literally wants to help you with everything, even if you didn't ask? You ever met that person? I was raised by that person. That's right. My mama was the classic overhelper. She was living with us, she would literally almost run into me in the kitchen trying to help me with something that I had no need of her help on. And it got really super frustrating. And she would get into this like martyrdom, this mindset of like, oh, I'm just helping. I'm here to help. And you paint it as a beautiful sacrificial gift. You see the theme here, like nurturing and sacrificing. But when you're over helping, you're not reading the room of the people that you're trying to help. Because here's the thing. People pleasing a lot of times originates from judgments we put on others that they didn't earn. We put judgments on them. We assume they're thinking things or needing things or wanting things that maybe they never thought, needed, or wanted. So overhelping is a big sign of people pleasing. I'm going to run through the rest of these a little bit more quickly because, boy, I just can get into these. I did all this research. It's probably one of the most researched podcasts I've done. I think it was because I was super convicted as I started reading up on this. How about this one? Do you feel responsible for other people's happiness? Oh, this one got me right in the heart. This is a big one with me and my daughters. And I can't tell you the number of times that I have just set down whatever I was doing, whatever I was working on, whatever I was, to whoever I was talking to. And I just would drop everything in a heartbeat if my daughters asked me for something. And I wouldn't stop to think about what I wanted or what I needed or to respond. I just reacted because I felt responsible for their happiness. Really, that's what was at the core of that. So do you feel responsible for other people's happiness? Is it your job to make everybody else happy? It's not healthy. How about difficulty expressing your personal desires or your opinions? So many women that I meet just don't say what they need or want. They don't say what they think about something. They just scan the room. You ever seen that woman who's scanning the room and just waiting to see what everybody else wants, needs, or desires? What everybody else thinks about a topic? That is classic people pleasing because you're taking the temperature of the room to decide what temperature you feel inside. And it's so unhealthy for your self-worth. How about reluctance to ask for help or receive favors? Oh, gosh, I'm telling you, as I was going through this, it's like, oh, that one hurts because I'm sitting here thinking, I'm over people pleasing. I don't do that. And I always thought about like not asking for help as a problem. That's a problem, but I never thought about it in the context of people pleasing because we will go out of our way to do everything for ourselves. And we tell ourselves we're independent. I'm a warrior. I can do this. When in reality, we don't want to be a burden or inconvenience another person. That by definition is people pleasing. Okay. How about seeking validation externally? When you're looking for others to help you feel okay about who you are, it's because you are desperate to please them and fight for their acceptance. What about suppressing your emotions, like stuffing it down? Like I'm really excited to be a part of that project. But if I put myself out there, I might step on some toes. Oh, I'm just gonna, you know what? I'm just gonna stuff down. I don't really want that. Do I really want that? That's people pleasing. And then this is another cousin of the scanning the room, over reliance on group consensus. Okay, straight talk here. Have you ever been out in a group setting and with a bunch of women and they're trying to decide where to go for dinner? And nobody will make a damn decision. It's exhausting and it's kind of crazy making. And you don't want to be that person like, that's it. That's it. We're going here. But if somebody doesn't do that, you go nowhere. Group consensus, waiting for group consensus. I would rather be in a room filled with women talking over each other because they all have opinions, although that has its downsides too, than to be in a room with a bunch of mealy apple women with no opinions, just waiting to see what everybody else thinks. It does not bode well for your sense of self-worth. If you want to have a sense of self-worth and be comfortable in your own skin and feel that beautiful feeling that you are worthy, you have to stop looking around for group consensus. How about chronic guilt? Oh boy. Let's talk mommy guilt here. When I was raising my daughters, when they were much younger, oh, the mom guilt, especially when I went back to work. I would feel so guilty about the time that I spent away or the time that I was exercising that it would cause me to overdo it in other areas to make up for it. Can you relate to that? I bet you can. So many women deal with. I'm sorry, I don't know if this actually is still recording. I sure hope it is. Oh boy. You know what? The joys of podcasting, you just never know when things are going to go a little wonky. So here's hoping it's still recording. I love you guys. Thank you for your grace. All right. This one. Offering. Oh gosh, I'm going to try not to smile. If you're watching me on YouTube, you're watching me try not to smile. Offering unsolicited compliments or reassurances. If you spent any amount of time with female human beings, you know what I'm talking about. It's that woman who is always like, oh my gosh, your hair looks amazing. Oh my gosh, you look so good in that suit. Oh, I love those shoes. Like a little bit of that is fine. But when a woman is always putting a light on others excessively, it's a sign that she's hungry for acceptance and love, and she wants to please another person in order to get it. And then let's talk about the biggie. Fear of rejection. Fear of rejection. That's really at the heart of people. It's the fear that if you don't please others, you won't be loved. All right. People pleasing can lead to such a loss of identity. And we at Girl Out of Order are all about our identity, right? Knowing who we truly are and loving this beautiful soul that God created. You are worthy, sisters, simply because you are you. You don't need to please others in order for you to be valued and valuable. You have a contribution to make to this world that is unique to you. And if you spend time trying to please everybody else, it's a fool's errand. You're pouring good money after bad. You're pouring, oh God. I get passionate and I get a little tongue-tied about it because I've lived it for so many years. And I thought when I started researching this episode that I was doing this for y'all, and I am. But I'm also saying this for me because I want to live a life of congruence and beauty and richness and potential. And to do that, I have to be settled in and of myself and not please others at the expense of myself. Now, let me talk about the nuance here. This does not mean that we are not servant leaders. It doesn't mean that we aren't kind and generous with our time and our resources. It doesn't mean we don't say yes. It doesn't mean we don't say no. It's the way that we say yes and the place from which we say no. So we know what people pleasing is. So how do we fix it, sisters? How do we bust through people pleasing? How do we change what is often a lifetime of habitual people pleasing? Well, we're doing people pleasing rehab here. So when you go to rehab, you got work to do. You got to do some work. You got to pull back some layers in order to move forward and heal, in order to break the addiction. Because I'm going to be real honest with you, people pleasing is an addiction. It's an addiction to the approval of others at the expense of your beautiful self. And we got to stop it. So where do we start? Well, here at Girl Out of Order, we give you practical tips on that. So we're going to dive in and give you several tips, things that you can tangibly take away and start acting on. Because I'm not just here speaking in your ears. I want you to take action because you deserve it, because you're worth it. And your worthiness, your sense of self-worth is dependent upon you breaking this debilitating habit. Number one, recognize the signs of people pleasing in you. I just went through a huge list of signs that you might be indulging in people pleasing. I don't need to reiterate them because there's so many of them. I'm sure you could see yourself in some of them. So it's about becoming aware. When we sleepwalk through our life, that's when these habits continue and get more and more ingrained. You are waking the hell up on this worthiness journey because you deserve a greater sense of self-worth. And to do that, you must become aware of this habit. Number two, understand the root causes of people pleasing. So we talked about how it shows up in our lives. Let's talk about some of the causes of people pleasing. First and foremost, your childhood. How you were raised, the environment in which you were raised can create in you expectations of what kind of woman you should be, what kind of wife you should be, how you should show up in your job. Societal expectations, we talked about that women are often looked at as nurturing and sacrificial. And so if we're not healthy and dialed in and congruent with our values, it can very easily become perverse and debilitating. It's harmful to your self-worth. Fear of rejection. Maybe you have some past traumas where people have abandoned you. That's been my story. So much of my life, that has been my story. Where I've been abandoned. I've been left. And so it's very easy for me to fall into the habit and pattern of people pleasing because I have such a fear of being left out. They call it FOMO, right? But frankly, it's a real deal. It might be your personality type. This I wanted to hit on real quick because I'm an Enneagram freak. I love the Enneagram. I'm going to do an Enneagram series. I don't know when. I got to get the right speakers from that, the right guests to bring on. But I love the Enneagram. And we did a family Enneagram. If you're not familiar with it, please go to the Enneagram Institute. Take the test. It is so eye-opening. I like a lot of personality tests, so don't think that this is the end-all be-all. But in the Enneagram, there are 9 personality types. And the numbers, so it's numbered 1 through 9. And number 2 is the helper. And holy cow, did I learn so much when we did a family Enneagram, because my daughters Chloe and Sophie are both a type 2, which is the helper. And ironically, I'm a type 8, which is the challenger. Surprise, surprise, nobody's surprised. But I'm also a type 2. They have the exact same number and they're very different, but it explains a lot of how I show up, especially as an attorney. But the helper, the shadow side of being a helper, is that you die to yourself so much in the service of others to get their love. It's literally like people pleasing 101 if you're not a healthy 2. Boy, that was a lot of numbers. I hope you got that. My best friend Lydia is a 2, and we talk about this so much. When she was nannying for me before we became besties, part of the reason that she had to quit is she was just so emptied out because she just couldn't help. Wait, that's not the right word. She couldn't stop helping. There we go. She just couldn't stop herself. She just kept over helping because it was so in her nature, and it was also in her nurture. So it could be your personality type. Understanding the root cause of how you got here is going to be one of the most powerful and potent ways that you can start breaking this habit. Remember, we talked, this is about rehab. This is an addiction. So unless you can understand how you got to where you are, you're going to have difficulty changing these patterns. Number 3, set healthy boundaries. Boundaries could be an entire series in and of itself. We talk a lot about boundaries. It's been a buzzword, it's trending. But seriously, though, if you do not have healthy boundaries, whether it be healthy boundaries around your health, your physical health, healthy boundaries around your time, if you don't have healthy boundaries around your energy, then you're going to be tossed about like a wave on the ocean. That's going to happen. So having healthy boundaries, and that can come from understanding the root causes. You understand the root causes of your people pleasing. A lot of times you're going to find that there have been places where you just have not had healthy boundaries. Number 4, identify your priorities and your values. Okay, here's the thing. So many of us go through life. I've used the term sleepwalking, but we just don't take the time to ask ourselves, what do I really want? What do I really value? At Date with Destiny with Tony Robbins, we spend so much time on what are called towards values and away values. And the towards values are like your top values that you're moving towards. Like for me, mine is love and appreciation and connection and openness and adventure and fun and playfulness. And the values I'm moving away for is disrespect and short-temperedness and anxiety. These are values I'm moving away from. So sisters, part of what I want for you so badly and why I created Girl Out of Order is to help you get to the root of your true identity. Who are you at your core? To figure that out, you need to know what you value, because so many women that I meet stopped asking what they wanted years ago, sometimes decades ago. They don't even know what they want. They come in and they say, I'm stuck, when in reality, they just stopped asking what they want. So you got to identify your top values. You have to know what you want. You have to know what you need, and then you need to go for it. Tell yourself the truth. Oh yeah, here we go. If you say no when it's congruent, guess what? You will not die. That is what is true. If you say yes when it's congruent, you will not die. But if you say yes when it's congruent and you think it's going to get you that love, that's not why you say yes. You got to tell yourself the truth about why you say yes and why you say no. And you need to tell yourself the truth about standing up for what you truly want. It's not selfish to take care of yourself. And that is what is true. Next one, number 7, build a supportive tribe. Gee, have you heard this from me before? About building a supportive tribe? We are not meant to walk this life alone, sisters. We are not meant to do this life by ourselves. When you are looking to break the people-pleasing habit, get somebody in your life who can help hold you accountable. Somebody that you can trust and feel safe with and say, hey, this is a trend I'm noticing in myself, and it is hurting my self-worth, and I could really use some support in this area. So when you catch me apologizing, can you call me out on it with kindness and grace? Because I could really use somebody to help me be more self-aware. And frankly, I could use somebody to help me be braver. Can you do that? You absolutely can. You can create a supportive tribe. It doesn't have to be a big tribe. You can find it in churches and synagogues, mosques. You can find it at the soccer sidelines. You can find it in mommy and me groups. You can find it at work. You just need to use your discernment, but don't try to do this alone. If you reveal the real you, you're going to have real connection. And when you have real connection, you get in these relationships that are going to help you grow and break through this. Number 8, start small. 2-millimeter shifts. Get a journal. Write down your boundary wins. Write down your I said no wins. I said yes wins. Celebrate. But they can be small changes because small hinges swing really big doors. Perhaps it's resigning from that party, class party mom. I'm sorry, I shut it out because I haven't been in elementary school in a while. But the party mom at school, like that's a really big deal. It takes a lot of time and can be really stressful. And what if you're honest with yourself and say, I really wish I had said no to that. I really never wanted to do that. A small thing would be resigning from that, saying, you know what, I'm reevaluating my priorities and I have to shuffle my time. So I'm respectfully going to resign, but I'm happy to help train up the next person. Going back to the whole telling yourself the truth thing, these children will still have their party and the teacher will not die. You just have to take care of you, sister. You have to believe that you are worth saying no to the right things and yes to the right things. Number 9, I love this one. Listen to your inner voice. Listen to your intuition. Your knowing knows. Your knowing knows what you want. Your knowing knows what you value. And your knowing knows you're worth it. And lastly, create a new empowering identity. We often live out an identity, but we don't intentionally create her. I invite you to create a new empowering identity. You can even name her. Mine is Aurora Flame. Yeah, I named myself. I don't care how weird it sounds, because you know what? Christine wasn't working out so well for me. Although I love Christine, I'm very tenderhearted towards her. I created a new empowering identity and I filled out the values for what she is, who she is, what she wants, what she values. What empowering identity are you going to create? Start with these 2 phrases. I'm the kind of woman who, and I'm the kind of woman that. And then fill in the blank. When you start creating a new empowering identity, it stops being a checklist and it starts becoming part of who you are. Because you're worth it. And it is not your job to save everybody else. It is not your job to make everybody else happy. And people pleasing will keep you stuck in a cycle of low self-worth because you are your own damn hero. And she is waiting for you to step it up for her. And by her, I'm talking about you, sister. You deserve to live in the light of your own desires. You are worthy. You are not going to live as a people pleaser anymore. And neither am I, because we're in this together. And I love you and I believe in you. And together we will break this habit. And our self-worth is going to be amplified and our impact is going to be magnified. You're amazing. Keep being a girl out of order. And I will see you next time. We have an amazing topic. We are going to be wrapping up just 2 more podcasts on worthiness. And then we're heading into the month of May. Oh, it's going to be a beautiful month. I can't wait to tell you all about it. But in the meantime, keep busting through your people pleasing. Keep living your best, most beautiful life and increasing your beautiful worthiness, because you are so worthy of living a gorgeous, beautiful life. And I will see you next time. Hey there.